Hello, everybody, and welcome to our second TA Professional Development training. Today, we're going to focus on total teaching, so an introduction to Mayflower Pedagogy, so how we teach. First of all, we need to retrieve the information. So what did we discuss in the last session? Have you used the strategies taught over the past week? And which areas do you need to continue to enhance? So if you just spend 2 or 3 minutes discussing this with your team, please. Okay, for today's session, you will need to have a copy of this. I have emailed it to you and it's also in the files. It's CPD notes. So add your notes as you go along, take a photocopy at the end please put your name and the date on for me. I know, I'm sorry. And give a copy to me and keep a copy for yourself so we can just log what professional development that you have had this year so far. So at the very beginning of talking about Mayflower pedagogy, so how we learn, we have to split it into the 3 areas, and we touched on this last week, and we'll review this every week. So the mindset is why we're doing something. The skill set is what are we doing? So what does the research say? What does the evidence tell us? And the tool set, how are we going to do it? And how are we going to ensure that what we do has the very best outcomes for our pupils? So here is total teaching. Now, some of you may have seen this diagram before, and others it will be completely new. Total teaching is our pedagogy. That's what we do. That's how we teach, how the children learn at Mayflower. Have a look at this diagram now. Spend 2 or 3 minutes with your partner TA or team and just pull this diagram to pieces and see if you can work out which part of the diagram represents what to do with our Mayflower total teaching pedagogy. What does the diagram represent? And now I'll tell you. So what is Mayflower total teaching? Mayflower total teaching is how we describe the mindset, so why we teach what we teach, the skill set, what we teach, and what we know about the subjects or behaviours based on research and evidence-informed practice. And of course, the tool set, how we teach what we teach, and how we assess if it is effective and has impacted positively on pupil learning. I'll now explain the diagram to you. So let's start from the outside and work inwards. You will see the 0 and the 10. The 0 and the 10 represents our positive learning behaviour expectations, our PLB. That's part of our pedagogy. The red square represents the 4 C's, which I'll explain to you. The blue circle represents the 5 R's, and the yellow triangle represents the triad teaching roles. When you combine it all together, that is our pedagogy. That is how we teach and how the children learn at Mayflower. And we call our pedagogy total teaching. Let's start with the positive learning behaviour. Remember, on the diagram, 0 to 10 represents our PLB chart. And on the right-hand side, this is the version that you may see in the classrooms now, which you should see in the classrooms. This is the most up-to-date version of our PLB chart. So down the left-hand side, that describes the action of the behaviour. Second to left names the behaviour. The middle one links to the measure. The fourth one in explains the feeling. And the last one dictates the consequence. And we must follow this rule. We must start. So obviously we're hoping and expecting the children to be within the greens. If they're within the greens, they get lots of praise, learning is being done, and they're making progress. When they start to sometimes slip, which they do if they're beginning to feel worried or they're beginning to distract others, then we remind them and we support the pupils to remain on task. Sometimes the children become anxious. They're really beginning to distract others and they're disengaged. So they've had their warnings, they've had their reminders, and now they're moving to a safe space within the classroom. The safe space within the classroom is not the book corner. We don't use the book corner to put children in who maybe need is a positive space, not a space to be connected with having to move off from their table. So you find a safe space. There should be a designated safe space within the classroom. When they start to fall to four, so when they're cross and they're refusing to work, they're moved to a safe space next door. So they take with them the 5-minute timer, their work, and a copy of this PLB chart, and they go next door and they should be able to talk through their feelings and their behaviour with the teacher next door. When they come back, when their timer has finished and they come back, they should be able to explain to you how their behaviour has changed. Sometimes they're on 3. They're refusing to listen and unfortunately they're disruptive, and therefore they go to the senior teacher in the block to support. So in each block there is a senior teacher and they go there. When they fall to a 2, they could be shouting and crying and they go for R&R away from their peers. Number 1, they're unresponsive and running away. They go to R&R and their parents are called. And if they're out of control and they're violent, they go to R&R and their parents are called. So in normal circumstances, before the pandemic, R&R was, of course, upstairs in the R&R room, and they go with a specialist trained TA that will go through the R&R process with them. At the moment, because of COVID restrictions, they go somewhere within the block that the senior teacher will ask them to go. And that is the PLB. So now the 4 C's. Have a look at this diagram. Do you know what the 4 C's are? Can you name them and explain how you use them effectively to impact the pupil learning? So please take 5 minutes, look at this diagram, see if you can work out what the images mean, and then answer the question. And here are the definitions of the 4 C's. So 1 is to create a can-do attitude. So key characteristics: warm, predictable, consistent, knowledgeable, authentic, empathetic, organised, prepared and able to build positive relationships. So are you standing at the door in the morning with a smile on your face saying, "Good morning, Charlie, how are you today? Come on in, it's lovely to see you." Or are you too busy setting up the classroom? It's just little things like that that we need to think about. The tools, so the building the learning power, also our PLB interactive displays, personalised targets, misconception memos, and progress pads. The class plan. Key characteristics are the clear expectations, clear incentives, clear rewards, and clear consequences. So the clear expectations, obviously that goes to the PLB, the class rules, the talking toolkit. The clear incentives and the clear rewards. Just have a check at your class star charts. Are they up to date? Have the children got the correct stars? Has every child got a star chart up? And the clear consequences. You need to make sure that every adult in your classroom sticks to the PLB rules. There should be no bending, okay, you don't normally behave like this, so today what I'll do is, no, we stick to the rules, we're consistent. And the tools for that are the PERMs, the feedback, the degree of happiness chart, that's the PLB, the star rewards, and the personalised monitoring booklets. The curriculum, the key characteristics. Are the tasks personalised and do they have clear objectives? Are they personalised to the thinking style, their interests and the appropriate style? And the tools, the IEPs, including achievement and attainment assessment data, personalisation plans, individual pupil learning goals and targets. Do you know where the personalisation plans are? Have you read them recently? Do you know what the curriculum is for your class, your year group? Do you know what the national curriculum says? Do you know what the progression is from the year below to the year above, and where the children, for example, in year 4, in year 3, should be, what they're actually attaining, what they're trying to achieve? You just need to make sure that you understand the curriculum. And the communication, the key characteristics. Do you give clear instructions? Do the pupils have to be, do you know where they are at any given moment? Have you got something set up so you know who's gone to the toilet, where they are, who's in their interventions? And do the pupils know what they should be doing at any given moment? I'd just like you to take a moment to reflect on that and just to think about what you are doing really well and what maybe you need to focus on for the 4 C's. Without the 4 C's, we can't build a pedagogy. The 4 C's is like the foundation of the house. Now let's move on to the 5 R's. So you've probably heard us talk about the 5 R's. So what are they? And can you describe each one? Can you think about the mindset, which is why, the skill set, which is what, and the tool set of each of the 5 R's? Take 5 minutes, please, and discuss the 5 R's with your partner or your team. This is the 5 R's assessment loop. We call it the Assessment for Learning loop, AFL, short for Assessment for Learning. And here are the 5 R's: to recognise, to record, to report, to review, and to respond. And here they are placed on the AFL loop. So we recognise, then we record, then we report, then we review, then we respond, and it goes around continuously in this loop. The only one that sometimes might flip where it is the respond. Sometimes the respond comes a little bit higher. So let's take each one and break it down and have a look. So the 5 R's. How do you recognise? So how do you recognise misconceptions? Do you question? Do you move around the classroom? Do you listen? Do you join in with the discussions? Or do you sit down and get on with admin? Or do you join in? Do you check the work as you're walking around the classroom? And the same for progress. How do you recognise misconceptions and progress in your classroom? Take 2 minutes to jot down, please, how you recognise. Okay, let's move on to how do you record? So the misconceptions. Do you have post-it notes, perhaps? Do you use your learning walls or the doors? Do you question? Do you join in with the discussions? Do you add to the project walls? And the same for progress. Just think, how do you record? And now the 5 R's. How do you report? So how do you report the misconceptions? Again, do you use the learning walls and the doors? Do you put an M next to any misconceptions and the pupils' initials? Do you feed back to the teacher? And do you feed back to the class? Do you stop the class if you've recognised and you've recorded a misconception? Do you report it to the class? And the same with progress. Apart from with progress, you don't put an M, you put a P, and you would probably put up a pupil model, if possible, upon the board so that everybody can see. And the 5 R's. How do you review? So the misconceptions. Do you ask the class for feedback and questions? Do you stop the group that you're working with, or the child, or the class, and discuss their misconceptions? I always stop and just say, okay, be honest. Let's break this down. Let's pull it to pieces. And you'll be amazed how honest the children will be about their misconceptions. And it's really good because you can work through them step by step. Do you make time to meet with the class teacher each day to discuss? Time is tight. So do you make time, or do you just leave and the class teacher leaves and then to pick it up later? We really should be making time. And have you seen the whole class feedback sheets that the class teachers are now using? You just need to make sure that you're aware of these. It would be great if you could put your input into them too. And how do we review the progress? Well, we use the pupils' work as a model. If something is great, let's show it off. Waggle means what a good one looks like. Let's show them. Let's ask the class for feedback and questions. Let's stop the group or the class and discuss and share the example. Ask your teacher to show you how to use the iPad or the Surface to cast onto the class interactive whiteboard. It's an amazing tool. And again, meet with the class teacher at the end of each day to discuss and have a go at completing some of the whole class feedback sheets. And how do you respond? So if we're thinking about the books, the misconceptions, we follow our PERMs. So we praise, enhance, respond, measure, and share. How do you respond? You should have your TA toolkit with you all the time while you're in class or working with the group. So you whip out your whiteboard, you whip out your flashcards, whatever you've got in there, your manipulatives that will help you to respond to the misconceptions. You find the common misconceptions and patterns for whole class and groups. Do you match the misconceptions to the correct intervention or reteaching method? And do you help adapt the planning and the roles with the class teacher? So if you've spotted something that needs adapting, feed back to the class teacher and they'll adapt their planning. There's no point moving forwards if something needs to be retaught or changed or enhanced. And progress, the same thing, we do the PERMs. Then we make sure that we've got well-matched planned extensions to extend the learning, not just used as a time filler. There's no point. The extensions need to be something that's relevant and is taking the children to the next step. And again, if it's too easy, if the children have done amazingly well, if there's a group of children that could be pushed to the next step, enhanced, let the teacher know what you're thinking and let's adapt the planning, the roles and interventions as necessary. So how do we respond? So there are 6 methods that we follow to enhance our pupils' learning and to make sure that the learning sticks. Misconceptions or next steps in progress can use these 6 methods, and they're all based on research by the learning scientists and are called the 6 strategies for effective learning. And in Blue Block, each class has a 6 methods board. And we use this to identify pupils and groups who need reteaching, and we decide which method will fit the pupil, of course, matching to their needs. If you want to have a look, you are more than welcome to pop into my room and have a look. It's the one by the internal door. And so here they are. These are the 6 strategies for effective learning. So if we start at the top and go clockwise, retrieval practice, which of course is done through our quizzing and having a go. So leave it and then try again. For example, retrieval practice would be in history. They have their quiz that they do at the beginning, then they'll do it again midway through, then at the end. This is retrieval practice. Spaced practice is similar to retrieval, but it's not quizzes. It's not questioning so much. It's planned, so it would be like our TT Rockstars, for example. We spot that the children in year 4 are struggling with 7 times tables, and so we specifically plan in that there's going to be regular spaced practice of TT Rockstars. We're addressing it through regular practice. Dual coding, that is using the word and matching it perfectly with a visual that helps explain. So not just a visual, not just a drawing, it needs to be a really clear drawing that explains the purpose of the word. Interleaving means that maybe you do your times table practice and then you give the children a break. So you maybe stop, let them do some reading for 5 minutes, then come back and do the times table practice. It's kind of giving them a break, swapping the area of focus and then coming back to it. Concrete examples is having your resources and your manipulatives. If a child is struggling with their phonics, Where's your phonics map? Where's their phonics map? Should be there. If they need the Numicon, where's the Numicon? If they need the Unifix cubes, where are they? Concrete examples. If they're looking for something and they're describing, I don't know, a Bible, maybe have a Bible ready and show them what the Bible looks like. These are the concrete examples. And the elaboration is the discussion. We need to be able to help the children to be able to articulate and explain, to question, to feedback, to have a conversation about what they're learning. And that is the elaboration. So now I want you to be honest and reflective. Take 5 minutes now to jot down which of the 5 R's you feel most comfortable and confident in. Now write down which do you need to focus and enhance. And in your teams or with your partner class TA, compare notes. Are there any patterns? And how can we support you further with this? So the teaching roles, let's have a look. Which role are you? So you've probably heard us talk about the triad teaching. So triad is something that's in threes. There's 3 roles: the teacher, the reteach, and the react. So some of you will probably say, but I don't know how there can be 3 roles when there's only 2 adults in the class. Sometimes we have to share these roles. The point is that these roles are interchangeable. So remember at Mayflower, we're all classed as teachers, we're all classed as leaders, and therefore these roles are interchangeable. So some days you might have the teacher role. You might be the one stood at the front leading the input. Sometimes you might be given the reteach role, where we've just talked about the 6 strategies for effective learning. You might be taking out some children to do some retrieval, some quiz practice, some spaced practice going over. You might be having discussions, the elaboration with them. That would be the reteach. Or you might have the reacting role, where you're walking around the class, you're picking up the misconceptions and you're reacting quickly. These roles are interchangeable. You can be 2 or more at the same time. So go back, think about your mindset, your skill set, and your tool set. So mindset, you can do this. You can be any of these roles. We all want the very best for our pupils, and that is the purpose of what we do. The roles are interchangeable. Be confident. You can be the teacher, you can be the reteacher, you can be the reactor. You know how to do it. The skill set, you know what we do. You create a strong culture by having a secure understanding of the 4 C's. You know consistency, understanding, and fairness because we follow the evidence-informed PLB behaviour tracker. You know how to recognise, record, report, review, and respond to misconceptions and progress. Now think about the tool set of the 3 roles: the teach, reteach, and react. So to be able to be the most effective in your role, whichever 1 or 2 or 3 that it is, you need the following. You need to have read the class personalisation plans, and you need to know where the copies of the class personalisation plans are kept. You need to have seen the planning in advance, and you need to be prepared with any resources that you may need in advance. You need to have your fully stocked TA toolkit with you when in class or working with groups, not on the desk, on you, with you all the time. It's so important that you have your resources and manipulatives ready to support the pupils. So if you're working with a pupil and you've left your bag on the desk, it loses the momentum, doesn't it? Because you have to say, oh, hang on a minute, let me just go and find my whiteboard. No, the whiteboard should be on your back. Whip it out and use it. And you need to be prepared to be visible in class, to move around the pupils, the groups, and ask those questions. Because without questions, we won't move any learning forwards. So this is the last slide. Be honest and reflective and discuss. How confident do you feel in each of these 3 roles? Are you able to define and explain which role you are in today? And how can we support you further with this? Okay, I know today there was a lot of information, a lot of talking from me. But it's so important that we can all articulate our pedagogy and that everybody understands each part of it inside out. I'm always here if you've got any questions, please just ask. Please fill in your CPD form, photocopy it and send it back to me. Thank you.